Hi folks, Hugo Rivera here with HugoRivera.net and welcome to my new body sculpting show. Basically the way that it works is that every Saturday I'm going to be posting up a new video, which will be my show of the week, and the show will last between 30 to 50 or even 60 minutes. It really depends on what I'm covering on that day, and it really and truly will cover every single subject related to body sculpting, fitness, bodybuilding, and the show is for men and women alike, okay? And we'll be covering topics from like mindset, goal setting, training, nutrition, supplementation, rest and recovery, you name it. Questions and answers as well. And the topics really, the way that I choose them is that I take a look at all the emails and messages that you all send me, and I just go through them and I just kind of like start grouping things. And based on what I see, then I can go ahead and come up with weekly topics to go ahead and cover on this show, okay? The other thing that I'm doing in my YouTube channel these days is that I'm beginning to load up 3 weekly routines, okay? Basically, it's a split workout where basically one day I go ahead and do shoulders and arms, another day I do legs, and another day I do my chest and back and my calves, okay? The reason for that is because a lot of you have been asking me to put some of my workouts up there, and I said to myself, wait a minute, if everybody has such a problem putting workouts together, then why don't I go ahead and I just film what I'm doing every single week? Because I figure it'll be beneficial for you, and it'll go ahead and teach you about periodization, and it'll also teach you that you don't need to be in the gym for 2 hours to get results. In fact, 2 hours is actually going to cut down on the amount of results because your testosterone levels are going to go down and your cortisol levels are going to go up. Okay, so this whole 2-hour thing is a complete myth. As you will see in my workouts, like I already posted 3 this week, and I'm linking them below, so you can go ahead and take a look. My workouts last me 30 to 35 minutes, to be honest with you. So, and if you do a little bit less sets than me, then it's going to go ahead and get you in and out of the gym in 20 minutes. So you get your cardio in and you get your weight training in at the same time, okay? So I'll be showing that every single week. And for those of you that train 3 days a week, then all you gotta do is that day one, like Monday, you just go ahead and do my Monday routine. If you wanna go ahead and do my Wednesday routine on Wednesday, you do it, and then on Friday, you go ahead and do my Friday routine. If you work out a little bit more, then you just go ahead and keep rotating the days, okay? So you do day 1, day 2, day 3, and then day 1, day 2, day 3, etc. So pretty simple. And any kind of questions you may have, just go ahead and tell me and I'll go ahead and answer them, or just comment below, ask me the question, I'll take care of that as well, okay? Anyways, like I said, I'll be linking all my workouts every single week that goes by. I'll link up the workouts of the week in the description below, and that way you can go ahead and access them, okay? Be sure to share them with your friends and be sure to share them with everybody. Spread the wealth, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are trying to get in good shape and they just really don't know how to do it. There's just too much confusion. There's just too much garbage out there. So that's why I have my channel, to try to educate. With that said, this week what I want to do is that I want to start by sharing a really cool podcast that I did with this awesome trainer from over here in Florida. His name is Luis Diaz, also known as the App Guy. And basically he called me up and he interviewed me, he grilled me with awesome questions. Came out to be slightly over an hour, so it's a little bit of a long podcast, but I don't think you guys will mind. It's just really full of good information, and we cover all sorts of things in this podcast. We cover mindset stuff, we cover how I went from being obese to then being anorexic, and then I almost killed myself, and then how bodybuilding saved my life, how I am like this today. We covered all that stuff, and furthermore, and this is really timely, I covered how to stay lean and gain muscle throughout the holidays, okay? So you really and truly don't want to go ahead and miss this. I believe we covered as well, how to not get injured, how to not get sick. And we just started talking, and he's really passionate. He's a great guy. The interview just kind of like took a life of its own, and came out with a whole bunch of information. Definitely check out below the link that I'm putting to his podcast. He does podcasts pretty much every week, and they're full of great information that it's going to go ahead and help you out. It's all free. And you really go ahead and benefit from listening to some of these podcasts. I've been listening to them myself, and I'm pretty impressed. So, Luis, shout out to you, buddy. You're doing a great, great job. Keep up the great work over there, educating people. We need more people like you. to basically help guide everybody and show people how to get in shape, the real way, not the gimmicky way. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with this podcast. And if you like it, click like on the button below and also share it with your friends. Comment, let me know what you think. And I'll go ahead and, like I said, I'll keep the videos cranking for you, okay? Anyways, enjoy the podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Ask the Ab Guy podcast, where we talk about action-based strategies to help you get leaner, build muscle, and get a six-pack. And if you're a new listener to the show, then I highly suggest you check out some of the free gifts and resources over at theabguy.com. All you have to do to collect those is enter your name and email, and you will get free workouts, free meal plans, and no BS advice that'll help you get the body that you want. Now, without further ado, let's jump into today's show. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Ask the Ab Guy podcast, where it is my job to help you get a six-pack. I'm Luis Diaz, your host, and today I'm happy to be joined by Hugo Rivera. If you don't know Hugo, he is an international best-selling fitness author. He's also a natural championship bodybuilder and the former New York Times official guide for bodybuilding.about.com. Hugo, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, Luis. And you?
I'm well. Thank you very much for being so generous with your time.
No, man, my pleasure. It's an honor to be in your show. It's always great to go ahead and talk to fitness-minded people who are trying to help others to achieve the best shape in the planet and to see those coveted abs. Everybody wants to have abs,
Exactly.
Whether they admit it or not, everybody wants a set of abs. Let's face it.
That is true. I've heard that it's a sign of health, but I think most people just want it just to impress people.
Yes, let's be honest. I mean, Luis, let me tell you something. I mean, I'm going to even disclose my age because I don't care. A lot of people think I'm in my late 20s or mid 30s. No, I'm not. I'm like over 40, okay? Here's the deal. It's awesome to have the great health benefits that come along with a proper program, okay? You have longevity. You don't get old. I mean, right now I feel and look better than when I was 14, okay?
Wow.
So for me, I'm just getting started with life. I'm just warming up, dude. Let's all face it. When I started to train, it wasn't for the health. It was because I wanted to look good for the opposite sex in my case, okay? So that's why I started. So
Agreed. Same here, actually. It was spurred by a very bad breakup, and then that kind of triggered into my falling in love with bodybuilding. But we'll get into that later. I really wanted to dive into your personal story and how you kind of grew up through fitness and how you got to today.
Okay, no problem. Well, it's kind of interesting because just like yourself, there was definitely a moment that I can look back in time and identify that moment as the aha moment, okay? And basically, when I was 12, I was really obese. And, I really didn't care. I mean, I was all into studies. I mean, I was a big nerd. I still am, to be honest with you. But back in the day, I just cared about studying and just watching TV and eating chips. So I didn't care about physical activity at all. So at 12, when I was starting to get interested in girls and stuff, I noticed that nobody wanted to go out with me for anything. And there was this one girl one time that I asked to a dance, and she told me, I'm not going to go out with you because I don't go out with pigs. So bro, that completely, wow. I was like, holy cow. I mean, when you and you know how it is, when you're 12, it's like you take these things like to the nth degree,
Yeah.
So to not keep you here all afternoon, I'll make the story short and I'll tell you that basically led me to jump into a diet. I didn't know what I was doing. This is the biggest problem that people face. When you don't know what you're doing, you make mistakes. So everybody used to tell me, you're fat because you eat too much, you need to stop eating. So slowly but surely I stopped to eat. And that drove me to anorexia. And,
wow.
9 months later, I go from 170 pounds, 5 feet tall, to less than 90, okay? So my parents, they took me to a nutritionist because my grandfather was a doctor, and he said, listen, he's sick. So he needs to see a nutritionist, So he started me with a nutritionist, and lo and behold, Luis, this lady saved my life because she basically said something that luckily for me, because I have a very logical mind, this made sense. And she told me, Hugo, it's not food that makes you fat, okay? It's the abuse of the wrong foods that will, okay?
Right.
I sat down and I said, damn, I think I saw this from the whole different, I was looking at this from the wrong angle. Maybe this lady is into something. So I told her, listen, I'll follow whatever diet you give me to the letter, okay? And if I gain some weight, I'm going to call you. And she told me, she's like, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. You toasted your thyroid, so it's going to take some time for your thyroid to go back up and get your metabolism going. But because you're a teenager and, you're really young, you're going to bounce back up pretty quickly, and you're probably not going to go over 100 pounds. Now, keep in mind, I was like 85 pounds wet. So I'm thinking to myself, this is a 15-pound gain.
Yeah.
But I had no choice, Luis, because I was losing my hair. I had no energy. I mean, I was terrified of eating, and I was kind of like, I'm like, you know what, this needs to change. So I went ahead with this, and sure enough, my body weight stabilized like at 101, and it wouldn't move from there. And that's when I learned how to like really measure food, and I started really taking an interest in how many carbs this has, how many proteins this has, et cetera, et cetera. And it's kind of interesting because then I'm like, okay, now suddenly, girls were looking at me. So this is kind of cool. Yeah. So, I start going out with girls and whatever. And one of them tells me that, you're really cute, but you could really use some muscles on you. And I'm like, oh my God. Are you freaking kidding me? It's like I've redesigned myself, okay? Now I have like the skinny surfer look, like really, really skinny, okay? Because I mean, some surfers have a good physique, all right? But some are really, really skinny. So I had that really, really skinny look, and I'm like, okay, this really sucks. I'm thinking to myself, but I said, okay, whatever. Maybe she has a point, because I was really weak, I couldn't carry nothing.
Right.
And I told my mom, I'm like, Mom, could you get me like some literature on bodybuilding, because I have no idea of nothing. And she got me the copy, the May 1990 copy of Muscle and Fitness that had a super feature with Arnold Schwarzenegger on how to gain muscle weight, okay? Let me tell you, Luis, when I saw this dude, I'm like, this is perfection personified. I have to look like this, okay? And man, I started following the routines, and I started eating more. I called my nutritionist, and she told me, yeah, it's just like, that sounds like a good diet, because the plan had a diet too. And basically, it was kind of similar to the one I was following, except that it also had protein shakes and stuff. So I would be eating 6 times a day. And I'll tell you what, I started doing that, and I started doing the routine, and I blew up. I mean, I went up to 145 in a hurry. Okay.
Oh man.
In 3 months, and this was during the summer, okay? So I was enslaving myself in the gym, and I was going and training and all this stuff. And I was sore like you wouldn't imagine, but I didn't care. It's like, it's the Spartan philosophy of no retreat, no surrender, So the choice is simple. It's like, I'm going to go to the gym, and if I die, I die. And if I don't die, I will grow. So it's just, there's no if and buts about this. So the choice is simple. And I kept on going at it. And when I went back to school in August, people, even some teachers accused me of using steroids. I remember it like yesterday.
Wow.
At the time, I didn't even know what it was, But as you know, when you're a teenager, you're 14, you have all the hormones already in you. So, if you do something halfway decent, you're going to grow.
Yeah.
Well, here's the deal. I hit a plateau like around September. I went up all the way to like 160, but I couldn't get past that. And that's really and truly when I started to research, okay, how do we do this thing to where you never hit that plateau? That's the deal. That's the holy grail. And man, I started years long of research. It took me like 3 years to start to figure things out. And I started doing, using the scientific method. I would just like write down in my journal, okay, I'm going to follow this training and this diet for the next 6 weeks. And some things worked great. Some other things didn't work great. But then after years of trial and error, what I noticed is that, wait a minute, every time I change my routine, there's some growth sparked. And there was one time that I got really fed up, Luis, and I basically got into a routine that I tried out that was like 2.5 hours to 3 hours every single day at the gym, going high volume, eating a ton and whatever. And then after I hit overtraining, of course, it only took like 3 weeks for me to hit overtraining.
Yeah, that sounds intense. Oh, yeah.
Bro, I was so drained. I was even losing weight and everything. It didn't matter how much I ate. Yeah. And I read this article, I don't know, from this guy that went to Bulgaria or something, and he read some Bulgarian research that if you do 45 minutes of training, that's like way better than doing hours of training. So I'm like, let me try this out. And Luis, bro, that's when I try that and I lower the volume and I do just 45 minutes of training, I went up to 185, okay? Whew. I'm like, holy cow. And then I start studying my journal and I start seeing these patterns to where whenever I will go from a higher volume routine to a lower volume routine, I will make gains. And when I will go back to like a higher volume routine, I will start making gains again, because if I stayed on the lower volume, heavier weight kind of routine, it would deliver results, but you will go stale. So that was the deal. So lo and behold, to make a super long story short, after many years, I started honing in and creating my own training programs, not realizing that what I was doing is what's called periodization of training, okay? and then when I started reading about periodization and all this stuff, I'm like, holy cow, I think this is what I've been doing without even realizing that that's what I was doing, And it's kind of interesting how ignorance is bliss, because on my own, I also came across the 10 sets of 10 training routine.
Oh, okay. Here we go. German volume training.
Yes, sir. I thought I invented it up until I started reading that, Vince Gironda and people behind Vince Gironda were already doing it anyways, So I'm like, oh, okay, well, I didn't invent it, but at least I know that it's a good training routine. I mean, that stuff got me up to 190 pounds, That's incredible. So, but again, I was really passionate about not giving up, and I needed to find out. People kept putting me down and saying, well, you need to take steroids now and this and that. I said, no, there has to be a way. I said, I'm not saying that I'm going to turn into a pro bodybuilder one day, but, there has to be a way to where the body, if you train it correctly and you diet it correctly, it's going to respond, and it's going to give you the results that you're looking for. So it's very interesting, because I got into the University of South Florida and I studied engineering, computer engineering. And my senior project, I decided to create a website, because that was back in 1998 and that was brand new, and it was cool to code a website back then. And I coded my first website with my brother's help, to be honest with you. Who's, by the way, 5 years younger than me, but he was a computer wizard anyway, and he already knew HTML.
Wow.
And he taught it to me, because at the time HTML was so new that USF didn't even have a class on HTML. Okay, so he taught me HTML. I already knew some Java, and I put my first website together. And I put some articles and stuff. And lo and behold, that's how I graduated. They loved my senior project, and it had some really cool articles on fitness and stuff that even some of the teachers enjoyed. And that was that. So as a hobby, even though I got a job in engineering, got a job at Honeywell, actually, is where I got a job in the military avionics division. So I was working with like military software for smart missiles and stealth bombers and stuff like that. Anyways, it was very interesting, because as a hobby, every single week I would post an article on the website. And I would be getting all these emails from people. I started to get emails from people saying, your articles have really helped me, and I lost 30 pounds and this and that, and you've changed my life. And that really made me feel good. And I said to myself, maybe I should do something more. Because, my thing, Luis, is that from the beginning, when I put that website together, even though the idea was to graduate, it had a double purpose.
Right.
People were always asking me what I was doing. So I would just refer them to the website so they could go ahead and read. And basically, I really enjoyed the fact that I was able, through the net, help other people and have them not commit the same mistakes I did. And as a result, I'm saving time for them, and I'm also saving them from doing things that they could injure them,
Exactly.
So I said to myself, well, how about writing an ebook? So that's how I put my first ebook together, which was Body Reengineering. And I started making sales on that ebook. And then the next evolution was, well, how about writing a book and publishing it? It's funny how it works, because it's one time that I went to the gym like at 11 o'clock at night on a Friday night after a very long day at work. And I meet this guy from New York. His name is James Villapeg, and it turns out that he had a similar childhood to mine. You know, he was obese, and he went through bulimia, not anorexia, but it's still an eating disorder.
Right.
And we hit it off, and we just started to talk. We were training legs that day, and we ended up training together and everything. And we hit it off, and I gave him my idea. I said, you know, I'm putting a book together, and, you know, if you want to collaborate with me, I think it could be, like, really cool. And you live in New York, I live over here in Florida, maybe you can go ahead and get a publisher to publish us. Well, long story short, Luis, the crazy idea worked wonderfully, and James and I put together the Body Sculpting Bible for men and the Body Sculpting Bible for women, featuring the 14-day body sculpting program. And the books, honestly, they became a bestseller immediately, like the minute they got published. And it's amazing. I think we did 30,000 copies within 3 months or something like that. We just broke the record of sales for Hatherley Press, which is our publisher. Right now, Random House is the distribution house. And it was really, really cool to be able now to reach people via a published book. And, you know, people from all walks of life. So, I mean, we're talking about regular people. I just want to go ahead and lose weight the right way. Right. And it has been a great experience, Luis, because that allowed me to leave engineering and just focus on fitness full time. And as a result, I mean, I've had a great life. I mean, I've been able to travel the world, basically giving seminars on fitness. I've met wonderful people. I've even gone to India to give seminars on fitness and whatnot. So, I mean, it's been an incredible, incredible experience to go ahead and do this. So, I mean, first of all, I do thank everybody that has supported me throughout this whole journey. And, you know, I do anything for my fans out there who have really helped me since I was basically just Hugo writing on his website back in 98, you know?
Right.
So, and I thank you also for having me on your show. So it's been super rewarding. Regarding the books, before I forget, actually, believe it or not, we published the first version of the books in 2001. And now in 2016, we're coming out with the fourth edition, which has basically, we hired a French chef to actually have like incredible recipes that follow the book's principles and stuff like that. And it has even more routines, and it has even like more information about nutrition and diet. Like I said, it's been a blessing, and I'm super excited about this. And James was just a great partner to work with to put these books together, because without James, the books wouldn't be what they are. So right. I'm super excited.
Right. That's tremendous. I definitely want to jump into the new book coming out with all the recipes and everything else for sure. There's so many different questions I want to ask you from that story. First of all, it's a tremendous story. And I love how you went from, from overweight to skinny as hell to just putting on weight. And it's cool because you've been on all sides. I guess looking through fitness at all different angles, from the skinny guy perspective to the obese guy perspective. So it's great because I can definitely ask you a bunch of questions from both sides.
Absolutely.
But jumping into the mindset, I remember you mentioned that you were at one point, you're either going to die or you're going to grow stronger, grow bigger. So I wanted to kind of ask you about the mindset for transforming, and if you had any techniques or tips for helping people with their mindset, because I get that a lot, questions regarding mindset and how to stay not only motivated but really out of their head. Some people have these really negative thoughts. I guess we all do. And how do we tweak that mindset to where we can grow?
Okay, that's a wonderful question, Luis, because everything starts in the mind. Okay. In fact, the Body Sculpting Bible is the first thing that it discusses. And when I have a new coaching client, that's the first thing that I discuss with them as well. Okay. Is the mindset. Because like you rightfully said, the biggest enemy that most people have is themselves. Yep. Okay. They'll be thinking, well, Hugo, you look great, or well, Luis, you look awesome. You have an incredible set of abs, and I just cannot do that. I'm not you, okay? It's the first thing I hear.
Yep,
all right.
Me too.
And it's very interesting because I look at them and I'm like, but why? Well, I'm just not you. It's like, I realize you're not me, but it doesn't matter. The power to achieve greatness is within you, okay? So this is the first thing that people need to realize. Everybody, I don't care who it is, everybody has that power, okay? And even if you have a health condition that is preventing you from losing weight or whatever, you can troubleshoot that condition, somebody that can help you to troubleshoot it, and you can go ahead and fix it. How many clients I fixed because, they were having issues because they had hormonal problems, their thyroid was down or their estrogen levels were too high or some medical condition, underlying medical condition that was really making their efforts really practically impossible to achieve. Yes. And once you correct that, then everything happens. So the first thing to remember is that the power to achieve greatness is within you, okay? It's an unlimited power. It needs to be untapped. You need to realize that it doesn't matter what kind of goal you set for yourself, you're going to go ahead and make it happen, okay? That's the first thing. Many people at the beginning told me, oh, man, even if you get on stage and you compete, you need to go ahead and abuse steroids to go ahead and do that, and you don't have the genetics to be a good bodybuilder, whatever. And my first show, I promise you, Luis, my first show, I had not even touched a natural testosterone booster, okay, for my first show.
Yeah.
And I won the whole thing unanimously. All right? Done. I had a great coach, Tim Garner. He coached me for that stuff, and it was a great experience. This happened in 2001. And, to this day, I look like I could step on stage anytime. All right?
Sorry to interrupt, Hugo. What show was that? Just so I can...
Yeah, that was the NPC Typhoon Bay back in 2001. And the funny thing is that my wife competed in that show in 2011. She wanted to commemorate my 10-year anniversary of the win, okay?
Oh, nice.
And she wins the Hurricane Bay of that show, which is really, really interesting. So I'm like, okay, so between my wife and I, we're Mr. Typhoon and Miss Hurricane.
Tremendous. I love it.
So the key thing going back to the mindset is that you cannot allow people to put you down or to dictate, oh, you don't have the genetics or you don't have the body shape, because, Luis, it doesn't freaking matter. You just need to go ahead and visualize what you want and go at it. Granted, we all have different muscle shape, so we may achieve the same proportions as somebody else. Let's say we have a 20-inch arm and a 50-inch chest and whatever, but we may not look exactly like the person that we're emulating, in my case, Arnold, for example, because we have different muscle shapes, but it's okay because we can achieve the best version of ourselves, okay? And I think that when we achieve the best version we can achieve, I think that really and truly changes our life. It gives us more confidence. It gives us, just more, I don't know, just the confidence alone is just going to go ahead and change every single aspect of your life, okay? Oh, yeah. So, mindset technique number one, just know that the power to achieve greatness is within you. Mindset technique number two is that you need to realize that when you decide to achieve something great, obstacles are going to come. It's just guaranteed, okay? Yeah. You're gonna get obstacles, and there's never a convenient time to get in shape. So therefore, you have to draw the line on the sand and say, the time to get in shape is now, okay? Done. And whatever obstacle comes, you go ahead and attack it, You attack the obstacle. That's it. Have the Spartan mentality of no retreat, no surrender. If you have that aggressive mindset, I guarantee you will be able to achieve whichever goal you put your mind to, okay? It's just the way it is. Obstacles will come. Don't let the obstacle go ahead and kill you. You just go ahead and figure out a plan to overcome the obstacle, and that's it. Every single client that I have, they have obstacles, okay? Some are little, some are pretty huge. And you know what? We just sit down and we discuss what the obstacles are, and we always figure out a solution for those obstacles, okay?
Right.
So
right.
That's definitely two things that I can share about mindset. And another technique that I can go ahead and just basically tell people for setting and achieving fitness goals. Trust me, this is something I didn't believe years ago, but I have tried it and I use it now every day, and it works. Write down your goals, okay? The minute you write them down, it's almost like you make a commitment to yourself. You write a contract with yourself and you say, okay, I'm going to go after this no matter what, okay? And then once you write down your goals, the next thing I want you to do is to say, okay, if you only have 3 days a week to go ahead and train, and let me tell you, Luis, most of my clients just train 3 days a week for 45 minutes and achieve incredible results.
Yep.
Just say, okay, well, this week, let's say you have a rotating schedule at work and you don't even know what the heck is going on. So you take your schedule a week in advance, okay, and you say, okay, well, next week I can train on Monday before I go to work. Maybe I can train on Thursday after work. And maybe on Friday, I'll go ahead and I'll do my training like right in the morning or maybe at lunchtime, whatever, you know. And then you make a commitment to follow through. You have to follow through. If you don't follow through, then you're dead. And what I like to tell people is that if you follow through on everything, mark an X on that specific day. That means that you trained that day. That means that you went ahead and did your diet. If it's a rest day, you can still make an X anyways, because of rest days, you're not going to train. But if you followed your diet, if you got your rest, you know, you got your whatever hours of sleep you need. Everybody's different. Some people need as little as 5. Other people need as much as 10. So, you know, go ahead and make a mark and say, okay, I went ahead and did this. And if you look at your calendar at the end of the month and you see a whole bunch of excess, that's a good thing. If you don't see a whole bunch of excess, well,
we got a problem.
That tells you need to, exactly. That tells you need to go back to the drawing board and, you know, start applying yourself and following what you need to follow, which is the training and the nutrition in order to achieve your fitness goals, okay? And these techniques, honestly, if you master this when it comes to fitness, you can also use it for business. You can use it for anything. You can use it for any goal that you have in life. So it's invaluable that you learn and you master how to do these things, okay?
True, definitely. I think it's going back to just being able to say you have 3 days and I've got to nail it and I've got to do them. That's just discipline. And one of the things I like to preach to a lot of people, a lot of my clients too, is that it's discipline. Motivation is nice, but it's not always going to be there. But if you have discipline, that'll always be there. And, you know, that's something you can build upon, build habits around, and eventually you'll make it much, much easier. You mentioned some of the obstacles your clients have. Do you have any examples in mind, any recent ones or any ones that stick out in your head of an obstacle they had to overcome and you guys kind of worked together to overcome it?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Well, you have many different obstacles, and I'll start with a very common one, which is the mindset obstacle. The first obstacle a lot of people have is the fact that they really and truly don't believe that they can make this happen. So I kid you not, I make them write down the fact that the power to achieve greatness is within me.
Right.
And I make them write it down. Write it down 10 times every single day when you wake up, because that's going to program you then to start thinking this and to start believing it. It sounds really stupid. I realize this. Okay. It's like, okay, it reminds you of when you got punished in school when you were little and you had to write something down many times. But I'll tell you what, this programming actually works. Okay. The other thing that I tell them is that whenever they get attacked with a negative thought or a negative comment, just replace it with a positive. Okay. So maybe, you know, if they think, oh, well, I cannot achieve this, change it and say, well, I can certainly achieve this. All right. It sounds really silly, but these things work. And if you make a habit of constantly repeating to yourself positive thoughts, then guess what? You're going to start getting positive outcomes. Okay. Another obstacle that I see often is, you know, rotating work schedules. And that's why I talked about this a little bit. Many times you have clients that, you know, could have work schedules to where sometimes they work in the morning, sometimes they work at night. Okay. They work third shift. Right. So I always tell them, you start your day when you wake up, and that is your morning. Okay. So if you want to work in the morning, even if, let's say, you wake up at 3 p.m., okay? Well, that's your morning. So you're going to actually work out at 3:30 or whatever, and then you're going to have your first meal, which is going to be your post-workout and breakfast. And then every 2 to 3 hours, you're going to feed yourself something up until you go back to bed, okay? And then you sleep, and then based on the day tomorrow, you're going to schedule your workout in advance, like I said previously, and you will know when is it that you're going to work out. Are you going to work out after work? Are you going to work out at lunchtime, or are you going to work out before? Okay. So for rotating schedules like that, my biggest advice is to plan the workout a week in advance. Pick your workout days. Know exactly when it's going to happen and how it's going to happen. Okay. True. In terms of nutrition, the biggest obstacle I hear it's hard for me to get all those meals in. It sure is. I think, Luis, we can both agree it is hard to get all the meals in.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, it's not easy. No, it could be a job sometimes, so it's a matter of figuring out what works for you.
Exactly. So what I recommend is preparation. Preparation is going to be the key to achieving success here. So what you're going to do is that the day before, you're going to prepare all your meals. Or some of my clients, they like to prepare all their whole week's meal, like in a Sunday. Okay? Me personally, I'm more into like preparing it the night before. That way, when you wake up the day after, everything is ready. So, it's like if your day is hectic and whatever, you have everything prepared in Tupperwares and you just have everything ready to go and consume. It's all pre-measured. It's all pre-prepared. There's no thinking, because what happens, as you know, is that when people leave the house unprepared, okay, and you need to carry a cooler, you need to carry all these things in a cooler with you. If you leave unprepared, what's going to happen is that you're going to miss meals and or end up eating at a bad place, and you're going to mess up your diet. Okay?
It happens all the time. Yep.
So that's the biggest thing for people I recommend in terms of the diet. Just prepare everything in advance is the ticket right there.
Yeah, it's that simple, especially when you're going into shows. I know not everyone listening to this is looking to compete, but the more you can dial in things, the more exact you can get. And like you said, preparing and planning ahead of time, it makes it effortless and easy. There's no thinking. You have the meals there, you just eat them, and you go about your day. So for that regard, yes, especially preparation is the easiest way to go about it if you have a Sunday. And I'm sure everyone has at least one day off a week where they can get things done. So
yes, exactly. The other thing, Luis, I just go ahead and tell a lot of people is that they need to remember the reason that they're doing this, okay? Because if they don't remember that reason, if they don't remember the pain that is causing them to take action and get fit, then it's very easy to go back to like old habits and just do away with the program, okay?
Yep.
So in my case, what always helped me was to think about, okay, how I felt when I was told that I was a pig, okay? That alone right there was enough to continue to motivate me to this day, to be quite honest with you. Even though these days my motivation is more, let me go ahead and see how much I can achieve. Let me see how much I can like achieve my version of perfection, okay? And all of us have a different version of what that looks like. But, that's the beauty of bodybuilding. It allows you to turn your body into a sculpture, and you work your sculpture, you do whatever you want with it. And that's the deal. So my motivation these days is slightly different, okay? Now I'm also motivated by health, which before I didn't care. But now I do care, because now it's cool for me to be, over 40 and not look like it, number one, not feel like it, and not even get sick. I haven't gotten sick, knock on wood, for years. So that's the deal right there. That's what motivates me today. But at the beginning, I think it's important to go back to that pain point, that aha moment that caused you to get into this fitness journey. If you think about that and you remember the reasons why you're doing this, you're not going to quit.
No.
That's a continued point of motivation right there.
Exactly. And you mentioned health, and that's tremendous. I really hope when I get your age, Hugo, I am going to be remembering you and making sure I'm going to listen to this podcast again and see if I can regain the tips that you mentioned. But I wanted to touch on health really quick. What are some of the things that you think have allowed you to stay sick-free and then injury-free and, feeling how you feel to this day? Some of the things that stick out in your mind.
Okay, perfect. Very simple. Injury-free and even sick-free, again, it's a combination of the training and the diet. The training needs to be periodized to where you're never really hitting over training, and you're not under training either. So what I like to do is that I do phases where I do higher volume, faster paced training, and then they last 3 to 4 weeks, and then I do phases where I back off on the training volume and I slow down slightly so that I can allow my body to overcompensate and grow. And then I do that again for 3 to 4 weeks as well. Okay, so having the right training is going to help you with health, because if you're not staying in the gym for more than an hour And these days, I just train very quickly from 40 to 45 minutes, sometimes even 30 minutes, actually. If you're not breaking down your hormones, if you're not lowering your testosterone and increasing cortisol levels because you're training too much, that's going to preserve health right there, okay? And it's going to keep your anabolic hormones optimized, and it's going to keep cortisol levels at bay. And cortisol is a hormone that when it's secreted in excess, it's going to get you sick. It's going to lower insulin sensitivity. It's going to, of course, eat muscle mass and preserve fat tissue. So we need the training to be correct. The second part, and equally important part of the equation, is the nutrition. You are what you eat. And I really mean that, because every 3 months or so, the body regenerates all of its cells. And guess where it gets the raw materials to go ahead and do that? It gets it from food, okay? So whatever you put in you is what you're going to become. So if you're constantly putting garbage into your body, it's no surprise that later on you're going to have sicknesses and you're going to have issues to where your body is no longer operating properly. So I always recommend people to go ahead and have a balanced diet. I typically start my clients, unless they have a fast metabolism. If they have a super fast metabolism, I go higher in carbs. But on the average, I like to start my clients on a diet of like 40% complex carbs, 40% proteins, and like 20% good fats, okay? Essential good fats. I make sure that all these foods are not processed, organic, and GMO free, if people can afford it. It's unfortunate that these foods are more expensive, but, it's just incredible. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, you have to stay away from the toxic foods, such as high fructose corn syrup, such as the man-made trans fats, partially hydrogenated oils, okay? You have to stay away from MSG and stuff like that. All foods basically that I recommend are unprocessed foods, just like for carbs, okay? I'll give you a rundown. For carbs, I recommend always like gluten-free oatmeal for people that are gluten sensitive. Yeah. I recommend the potatoes. I recommend sweet potatoes. I recommend brown rice. I recommend also like some cream of rice after the workout is wonderful. For proteins, any kind of lean protein is good. You're looking at chicken, you're looking at turkey, you're looking at even some lean meats are pretty good. You're also looking at good fish, like salmon is wonderful because you also get the protein and you get the essential fatty acids. So I always have one meal for people where I recommend salmon. And if my client doesn't like fish, then I recommend definitely a nice tablespoon or two of the Carlson fish oils, because it's essential that you have your essential fats, because these fats cannot be produced by the body. No. And as a result, we need to supplement them, okay? And the funny thing about essential fats is that they have been shown to have incredible health properties. I mean, properties of like incredible brain function, properties about increased immunity, properties of like increased insulin sensitivity, and in terms of like, physique wise, they help you to lose fat and build muscle, because the fats are used to create hormones that we need in order to achieve these goals, okay? So I'm huge on the fish oils. I also recommend a tablespoon a day of coconut oil to most of my clients, and half a tablespoon if it is a lady. Coconut oil has been shown to have incredible properties as well. Kills bacteria, kills viruses. I mean, again, awesome stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
That's the ticket. Fat, you got to realize, Luis, people were scared of fat for years, okay? I remember in the 1980s, people used to say fat consumed will make you fat. That's it. But in reality, there are many different types of fats. You have your man-made fats, okay, which are totally catastrophic, but you have good saturated fats, like the fats that come from eggs. And I recommend eggs also for the diet, okay? Those are good fats, and you need them. And you also need your polyunsaturated fat, and you need your unsaturated fats. So, I mean, you need all these fats, monounsaturated, I'm sorry. You need all these fats in your diet, because without them, then your body's not going to be able to function properly. So I just laugh whenever I see some of these diets that are like, oh, you got to kill the carbs, or oh, you got to do this, or oh, you got to do that. This is it's craziness.
Yeah. A lot of people like to polarize and go to one side, one extreme, You know, you have the fruitarians and then you have, you know, ketogenic diet and things like that. And I don't think for the person who's looking to optimize their physique that those diets will really get it done. I'm sure in extreme cases it will, but most people will find it hard. So that's tremendous. Now, the holidays are coming up.
Yeah.
I love the holidays. I don't know about you, Hugo, but
I do. I certainly do, my friend. I've always loved the holidays.
Agree. Okay.
Absolutely.
Good. We're on the same page there. I wanted to see what kind of tips or strategies you use to stay lean during the holidays, because we both know there's tons of really, really good food that you're going to get tempted by wherever you go these days. So any tips you give clients or your friends and, you know, for staying lean while over the holidays?
I sure do. Yes, absolutely. In fact, I ended up writing an article on the topic, and I always send them the article. But but here we go. We're going to discuss the tips, okay? First of all, you need to plan ahead, and you need to be organized, okay? So again, we go back and we plan the bodybuilding workout days 1 full week ahead. The reason for that is because of the amount of get-togethers and days that the gym may be closed. It is best if you decide like a week ahead which days you're going to be attending the gym, okay? So simply take out your calendar, schedule your workouts, and even write down at what times you're going to be performing them. And in this manner, your chances of missing workouts due to parties or gym closures are pretty much eliminated, okay? Again, I've discussed the fact that there's no need to be in the gym every single day. So if you're training, you know what, if you say you train 5 days a week all the time, and the holidays you find it hard to do that, well, guess what? Lower your training frequency to 3 days a week. I mean, bodybuilding can be very flexible. People make it unflexible, but that's because they think that they don't have flexibility. But there is flexibility. You can just scale back a little bit on your workouts. It's okay, you know. The other thing I recommend for the holidays is to work out as early as possible. Preferably, again, first thing in the morning. If your schedule is really hectic, definitely, I would advise waking up early and getting the training done, if possible, right 100%. Before you go to work, okay? If not possible, then like I discussed before, try it at lunchtime or try right after work so that nothing else interferes with your workout. But on days off from work, definitely, again, get the training done as early as possible, because you may get a call from, I don't know, from a family member or something, and surprise, they're going to be at home, or surprise, they're going to invite you to their place. And if you haven't worked out, you have the risk of, you know, missing a workout. So that's definitely another tip I like to do. A great tip for the holidays, plan your cheat meals wisely, okay? This is really important because we have Thanksgiving, okay?
Oh, yeah.
In my case, I have my birthday on December 5th, so I have to schedule that one in.
Oh, boy.
You have Christmas, which is obviously on the 25th. And then you have New Year's, which is on, obviously, you know, on the last day of the month, okay? And you're going to celebrate for a couple of days. So, I mean, you could say, all right, on those days, I'm going to have cheat meals. Now, here's the deal. I advise that if you're going to have a cheat meal, you don't go on an all-out binge. I think people need to learn moderation, Luis. I think, you know, you could have a cheat meal, and you don't need to have your stomach to the point that you just gain 4 inches from just gorging on everything, okay?
Very true.
Learn some moderation. I mean, if you're going to be cheating, then just go ahead and have a little bit of this and have a little bit of that and put it all together, you know? And, you know, if you want to go as bad as, like, doing a cheat meal and then 2 hours later doing another one, it's okay. But just know that the more you do this, the more you're going to have to work a little bit hard to compensate for it, okay? So maybe on cheat meal days, okay? Because I don't want to say a cheat day, because sometimes when you tell people cheat days, Luis, you know how it is.
Yeah.
They'll go ahead and gorge all day long, you know?
Yeah,
it's like, they'll call you tomorrow, bro, I gained 15 pounds in a day.
It's amazing the damage you can do in 24 hours. So, yeah, it's. I like to use cheat windows where you have like a window and you kind of graze for 4 hours, or if you go to a party and there's not a set meal, but there's a bunch of food out on the table you can graze. That's what I like, strategy I like to use. But the cheat meals as well, especially when I'm getting ready for a show or something, it's maybe 1,000 calories, and that's absolutely it.
Yes, Exactly. There needs to be some control. There needs to be some moderation. And I'll make a note of the following, especially for us here in the U.S. And I love our wonderful country, but unfortunately, we have the worst foods in the planet. Okay?
True.
And the reason for that is because a lot of the foods have been manipulated. And if you're not eating the wholesome foods from your diet, then you run the risk of going and consuming foods that may have some trans fats, that may have the high fructose corn syrup, and that may have some other ingredients, okay? So when you put these things into your body, now your body has a bigger propensity to get fat from those foods, okay? When I lived in France, Luis, this is really when I noticed the difference, because I moved to France for 5 years. You know, my wife is French, so before we moved to the States together, I basically lived there. And I discovered that the food there was entirely different and that I had a much better effect on my physique. And when I started doing research and talking to doctors over there and scientists, well, guess what? It's because the food over there is all like organic. It's all like totally unprocessed.
Yeah,
okay?
You can taste the difference.
Buddy, I had a ball during Christmas because I could eat whatever I wanted using your grazing technique, okay? Using that same technique, I could eat whatever I wanted, and the next day I was jacked up, okay? I mean, I will go to the gym and people are like, what do you take? I'm like, no, I just ate.
Oh, boy.
So,
I love it.
Yeah. So, I just want to caution people that unfortunately, because of the processing of the foods here in the U.S., we really need to be a little bit more careful and vigilant about what we put in our body. So we need to be a little bit more strict, okay? But with that said, I'm all about moderation. I love your grazing technique. That's a great technique as well, Luis. And just have some self-control. Don't blow the diet, because if you blow the diet completely, you know, if you go on an all-out binge, you're going to regret it, because, you know, after New Year's, you're going to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, what the heck did I do on the last 6 weeks, you know?
Yeah.
You could have your cake and eat it too if you play smart. So if you're going to have a cheat meal or a grace period, maybe lower a little bit the carbs in the morning of that day, you know? That way your glycogen stores are a little bit depleted when you start your grazing period, okay? So that's an idea. And if you really want to have like a grazing period of like 4 hours or something like that, and you can time it properly, a good idea is to go ahead and have a workout like an hour before your grazing period starts.
True. Yep.
That way you have some of that window of opportunity there where you have, you know, those glycogen stores depleted and stuff. Another thing I like to recommend as well is during the period of December, increase your repetitions. You know, do a high repetition, fast-paced type of routine, because if you do so, you're going to constantly be burning those glycogen stores. You know, you're going to have that metabolic rate on fire all the time. And not only are you going to get good cardiovascular effects out of your weight training workouts, but also when you go ahead and do grazing periods or cheat meals, then you're going to have a much better effect, because your glycogen stores are more depleted, and therefore you can store more glycogen before you start storing some of that food as fat. So if you play your cards right, you could definitely get away with this, and you're not going to have a problem. I also, of course, recommend definitely a tablespoon or two of fish oils every single day, because the fish oils have some anti-lipolytic properties, meaning that you can eat a little bit more calories, and those calories are not going to be stored as fat, which is very interesting. And I also recommend for the people that are going to be consuming foods that they're not used to, is to have some digestive enzymes as well, because if they're not used to some foods, you know, it could upset your digestive tracts, and that's not cool. So definitely do that. And then finally, maybe 3 to 5 hours after the cheat meal or the grazing period has ended, maybe have like a light 30-minute walk, just to kind of like, you know, get the blood sugar back in order and start, you know, getting the body back into kind of like fat burning mode, so to speak. And I'm not talking about anything strenuous. I'm just saying, like, you know, walk around.
Yeah.
Just move, you know, maybe walk around 2.5 miles, 3 miles per hour, whatever. I mean, just something light, nothing crazy. I'm not talking about running a marathon or anything like that. I just want the body to just kind of like normalize the blood sugar. The worst thing you can have is a grazing period, and then you go ahead and you hit the sack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah, it's
So
probably the best idea as far as fat storage, for sure. I do agree with the high volume training during December, during these kind of months where you know you're eating a little extra. You might as well put that extra weight or extra food intake towards building muscle. So
yes,
a high volume program is perfect for this part of the year. So agreed 100%.
absolutely. So, those are pretty much my tips for staying lean over the holidays. And like you rightfully said, if you play your cards right, you can gain some muscle, and maybe you don't lose fat, but you don't gain any either. So that's all good.
Exactly. And I'll have to link your article in the show notes as well. And I think I did an article last year too, so I'll link both articles for anyone who wants to check them out. But before we get off, I got one or two more questions, but I really want to touch on this because we mentioned it earlier, the Body Sculpting Bible for men, the new version's coming out. And I wanted to ask you some of the feedback, or based on the feedback you've gotten from people who read the book, why do you think the earlier versions were so effective, and what is, if you could give us a preview of what's coming out in the latest version.
Okay, sure. Absolutely. Thank you for asking. First of all, it's a couple books. We have the Body Sculpting Bible for men, and we have the Body Sculpting Bible for women. Okay. And much to my surprise, they both have sold equally well over the years. So, I definitely thank you, all the ladies, for the support. I wasn't expecting that, because I said to myself, well, a book written by a couple guys, maybe
right.
Maybe the ladies are not going to be too into that, but we've had incredible support from everybody all over the world, and the feedback we've gotten is just amazing. I mean, the reason I think this book did so well since the beginning, Luis, is because we kind of put our heart out, and we told people, listen, we're just like you, and we had issues in the past, and we didn't know what we were doing, but through trial and error, we figured out the path to doing this. And here's the path. And in the book, we talked about mindset. We shared groundbreaking techniques at the time that nobody was talking about, such as visualizing the muscle doing exactly what you need it to do, such as putting the intention in every single repetition, is what James calls the zone tone, okay, which is basically, you kind of touch your muscles and you kind of flex them, and then you go ahead and do your exercise. Let's say you're doing biceps curls. Well, you kind of flex your biceps a little bit. You try to feel the muscle. So now you create a mind to muscle connection. And then you start doing the exercise really and truly focusing on putting that tension in the muscle. Okay. And that's the zone tone technique, so to speak. And it allows people to really create such a good mind to muscle connection to where one set is going to be the equivalent of 3 sets that you didn't put your mind into it,
Right. That's a huge element right there.
So that's a huge element. And I think, between the mindset stuff that we had there and the fact that we created routines for all levels and for all sorts of equipment available, meaning that if somebody only has a pair of dumbbells, there were routines in the book to deal with that. If somebody had a fully equipped gym, there are routines in the book to deal with that. If somebody could only train 3 days a week, other people could train 6, there are routines for all those too. And these routines are periodized, and they, manipulate the sets and repetitions and rest in between sets in a way to where your body, like I said before, you do kind of higher volume phases and then lower volume phases.
Yeah.
It just brought that to the mainstream. And I think these were the first books to bring periodization to the mainstream people, because people were like, well, what's periodization? It's something that only athletes use. No, it's something anybody can use,
Exactly, yeah.
And we also discussed diet, and we discussed supplements, and, and we basically said, hey, listen, this whole madness of eliminating fats or eliminating carbs or all this, it's all garbage, You need to start with a balanced diet of 40-40-20. And then as you get more advanced, and you get if a guy gets to 10% body fat and a lady gets to say 13, and they want to go even lower, then you can introduce a little bit of fancy carbohydrate cycling. But even on the carbohydrate cycling protocol, you're not going to eliminate carbs. You're just simply going to do simply a little bit lower some days and a little bit higher some other days. That's it. You're just playing around with the body, but nothing crazy. And these books were also packed with a huge library of exercises and wonderful pictures. And for the pictures, this is a great thing we did, is the fact that we didn't use professional models or anything. We used real people. And I've gotten great feedback from everybody on that because, people were like, wow, this books look legit, like.
And not just models.
Exactly, exactly the point. So, everybody identified with one of the physiques that they saw on the book. And of course, it helped tremendously that we had a book just for women and a book just for guys. And when we put these books together, we really and truly put that emphasis on the genders, because even though men and women can really use the same routines, right?
True, exactly.
But what we did for women is that we know that women like to work on their problem areas, which are, the glutes, the legs, and stuff like that. So we created routines that specialized on the female problem areas, okay? And at the same time, these routines will go ahead and create balance in the physique, because a lot of girls, unfortunately, they go into the gym and they just work on their lower body, and that's not good either. True. You need to have symmetry between the upper and the lower. So we taught that in the books, and I think that's one of the reasons why they were so well accepted. It just basically had the full recipe there to achieve whichever success you wanted, even if you didn't want to go to the gym. If you just have a pair of dumbbells at home, you can do the routines at home. That's fine, not a problem. The new books, they have more routines still. They have 21-minute routines, for example, for those people that are really strapped for time.
Everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone, exactly. We talk about these toxic foods. We touch upon that, about the toxic foods that I talked about. We also have the full section of recipes, because one thing that we constantly saw is that people, not everybody's like us, Luis. You and I can probably eat the same diet every single day, day in and day out, and we don't care.
Yeah, it's true. It's I keep it simple. I don't like to deviate too much. So agreed. Yeah, and I've had clients where they like to have different things every single day, and they don't like that same thing or same food varieties every single day. It just drives them crazy.
Exactly. So as a result, basically we decided to, get some help, and then we got this wonderful French chef lady that put these recipes together using the principles of the book. So anybody that follows any of those recipes is going to be following the exact macronutrient recommendations we're providing, and they're going to have a really tasty meal. Because let's face it, I'm not a chef, and that's not my specialty. So, we definitely covered that. And then we added more questions and answers, and we added some more updated information on supplements as well, and a whole bunch of other things. We added a whole section on new tips and stuff like that. So there's really good value in these books. I think the books are now, they're called the Body Sculpting Bible for a reason. They're now, I think, close to 500 pages.
Wow. Wow, that's a textbook. That's tons and tons of information and gems and years of experience in those pages. So I think it's something that's high value, as opposed to a lot of the things you see online these days are like 15 pages or 14 pages, which is fine if it has the right stuff in there, but it's, I can tell you went deep into this one.
Yeah, and one thing, Luis, people don't have to read it from cover to cover, even though some people have emailed us and they have said that they enjoyed the read. Wow. But the key thing is that we created a very modularized textbook, to where in the beginning there's a quick start page that basically says, look, if you want to start quickly, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
So if you have 3 days to work out, you do this, you do that. You go to this mindset page, you do this mindset exercises, you use these self-hypnosis exercises. So again, it just guides you and gets you started on your path very quickly. You don't even need to understand the program if you don't want to. You just gotta get it going. Okay.
Yeah.
And James and I are both pretty good at answering questions. If people email us, we take the time to go ahead and answer them, because it's an honor that people have really supported us so well with these books, and it's a good thing, because we really wrote the books with the intention to help people. It was never one thing to where we sat down and we're like, oh my God, this book's, wow, we're just going to get rich off the books and this and that, whatever,
Right.
We both really had a passion to, let's go ahead and help these people. And especially, us, because we had issues with eating, okay? So we definitely understand all those guys who don't ever say a thing, because typically eating disorder is more associated with women.
Yeah.
And then us guys, who have gone through it, we know that there's a lot of guys who are experiencing eating disorders and they don't say anything about it. So,
Very true.
I had a passion to help both genders to go through this. There's nobody that should hate themselves to the point that they say, oh my God, I'm never going to eat again or whatever. And I've seen that on both genders, both men and women just torture themselves like that. And there's no need for that. In fact, like I tell my clients, the secret to continued success when it comes to building muscle and losing fat is the fact that as you gain more muscle, every 10 pounds of muscle is 500 new calories that you're burning. So you got to up your calories in order for your body to not hit the emergency mode and immediately get stuck. Okay? This is why people get stuck. They get stuck because they continue to go down in calories, when in reality, as your body composition gets better, you need to eat more. So that's the paradox right there.
Yeah, that's something. It's even really relatively lean guys want to start cutting carbs way too early and trying to get leaner, but they should really be focusing on building muscle, because that's obviously going to boost the resting metabolic rate. Therefore, you can eat more and do nothing, or stay leaner while, doing relatively the same thing, which is nice, which is,
Exactly. And that's the thing that people ask me, you must kill yourself to look the way you look. I don't, because I figured this out, and we just covered it. This is the holy grail. This is like this secret right here that we just disclosed is like the $1 million secret. Well, forget the million. It's the $1 billion secret, okay? That's it. We just disclosed it right here. So I hope that people listening over here definitely take advantage of this, because that's the secret and a half, and that's what most people don't understand. They just get overzealous, and I understand the gung-ho attitude. Trust me, I do.
Yeah.
About, being a Spartan and getting things done, and you want to lower the carbs and you want to suffer. It's all fine and well. But here's the deal. I believe in training hard, but also training smart. So you need to know when to apply the Spartan philosophy, because you need to apply it wisely. Otherwise, your body will rebel against you, and that's a battle that you cannot win. Okay?
Right.
So, yeah, negotiate with your body is what I always tell people. Negotiate with your body, and if you negotiate with your body successfully, the body will continue to do exactly what you want it to do.
Exactly. Continue to adapt the way you want it to adapt and not backfire. So before I let you go, Hugo, one last thing. You've been in the fitness game for a long time, much longer than myself. So I want to ask you, what is one thing that you've changed your mind about in the past year or so, or a couple of years, when it comes to fitness, training, nutrition?
Okay, I'll tell you the biggest change, and it was more than a couple years ago, but this is the only change that has happened in the last few years. If you would have asked me before I moved to France about like all this organic food stuff and GMO and all this stuff, I would have said, listen, the jury's still out on that. The scientific research says it doesn't really matter, especially about high fructose corn syrup. It's been proven to be safe, and this and that and the other thing. But before I moved to France, I'm here to tell you that I was consuming a lot of these foods, and I was having issues with cravings, and I was having issues with energy. I was having issues with blood sugar. I had a lot of allergies. My immunity wasn't the greatest. I mean, I would catch a cold easily, and I didn't understand these things. And then when I moved to France, after like 6 months, I started experiencing incredible health. And my body was just ticking, and my body was just changing. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? So, of course, I started looking at different things, and I'm like, the only variable here is the food.
Right.
So, of course, I started investigating about the food and the way that they manufacture it over there and how they do things. And let me tell you, I figured it out. My wife took me to a bakery, and we talked to the owner, who was looking at me very weird because I asked a question. And the question was, how many ingredients does your bread have? Okay? Because I happen to know that if you check out the ingredient label of a manufactured bread over here in the U.S., we have like 20 ingredients, of which 10 I cannot even read with my engineering degree, okay? So we asked that, and he looked at us weird. He's like, is this a joke? I'm like, no, it's not a joke. I made up some story that this was for one of my New York Times about.com articles, okay? So he was really happy to show us how the whole process works. And it turns out that bread in France only has 4 ingredients, okay? They're all wholesome ingredients. You have the actual bread material, right? And then you have
yeast and water.
Exactly. That's it. You just called it.
It's like yeast, water, and wheat, I believe.
Yeah,
Something
correct.
like that. My father's a baker, so.
There you go. GMO-free wheat. That's what you have over there, okay? And they put it all together. They stick it on the oven, and there you go. You have some bread. You know, it's not going to last more than 24 hours. I promise you that.
Exactly.
But you can eat it, and it's going to make you look awesome, and it tastes really good. So that's the difference. And I said to myself, holy cow, you know, and the more I researched things, the more I saw the difference. And then suddenly my allergies started to go away. Suddenly I just was not getting sick anymore. Certain pains that I have in my joints, they started to leave. Okay, so I'm thinking to myself, well, all these pains and all these problems were being caused obviously by inflammation that the body was creating in response to certain food items that I was putting in. Okay, and something as little and as innocent as ketchup, okay, let me tell you, if it's made with high fructose corn syrup, it's gonna mess you up. Okay, it's gonna give you some cravings that you're not even gonna understand. All right, just a little bit, a few drops on each meal, like I used to do. Now I use ketchup. I started using it in France. It just was made out of tomatoes and some salt, and that's it. There you go, job done. Unbelievable. Right. Different story. I can put it in my meals a little bit, and there you go, give it some flavor. I'm good to go. I don't have a problem with it. Right. So that's the biggest thing that has changed in my view of things. Now I really put emphasis on eating organic, eating GMO-free stuff, eating stuff that is really not contaminated with like high fructose corn syrup and the trans fats and MSG and stuff like that. I don't want to put anything in my body that was not made by Mother Nature itself. So
True.
That's the biggest change.
I love it. It's where I'm starting or trying to get to. I'm not 100% perfect, but moving more fully organic, fully non-GMO, that kind of stuff, especially as you go along, you think about over the course of a lifetime, if you continue to eat that stuff, how much it builds up and the toxins and pesticides build up in your body, and that can affect a host of things. Probably causes a bunch of cancers too. So definitely right there. And I love how you were able to notice how it affected your cravings, your recoverability, your inflammation. So those are huge things I always hear people complaining about. So it definitely speaks volumes.
It's very interesting, Luis, because when I started instructing my clients to do the same, and most of my clients, I'll tell you, their ages range from 45 to like 70 years old, okay? So that's kind of like my average client that I train online. Let me tell you, when they do these changes, health problems that they've been fighting for their entire life suddenly start to go away, okay? It's incredible. Even sometimes I ask myself, well, is this something just, that happened to me because maybe I had like a weak system and maybe I couldn't deal with certain things? Or is this something that happens to everybody? And I can tell you statistically, I can say that I have enough sampling, definitely way over 100 samples, to go ahead and say that there's a statistical significance here. Every single person whose diet I turn into a very clean, organic, GMO-free, free from any kind of like toxic foods diet is somebody that's going to have incredible enhanced health regardless of age. Okay? It's incredible. It blows my head.
Tremendous. It's true. And you see more and more stories coming out about it every day, especially online and reading a lot of the people who've made businesses around this kind of stuff. So it's out there. It's definitely true. So the cravings thing is the biggest thing for me because I've had cravings in the past where it's so hard to stick to the right diet like that.
You cannot control it, Luis, because it kills the signal that goes to your brain to indicate that you're full. Right. Okay? And it also offsets your blood sugar levels. So now you have a couple of whammies that are working against you. So for years I said to myself, my God, my willpower must suck because I'm constantly craving stuff. But it wasn't a willpower issue. I obviously had the willpower. I was fighting this stuff. I wasn't succumbing to it. Yeah. But I felt miserable. Now I'm craving free. So I feel really good. I feel like I'm totally free from this stuff, which is a chemical need caused by these ingredients. Okay?
Tremendous. I love it. It's true. Hugo, where can people find out more about you? Where can people find more about the Body Sculpting Bible for men and women? And how can they say hi to you and get in contact with you?
All right, awesome. Well, they can always go by my website, HugoRivera.net, and they can shoot me an email at Hugo@HugoRivera.net, and they can ask me, whatever questions they have, if they're interested in the books or coaching, whatever. The books are available these days definitely over Amazon.com. Best price, I believe, you get it on Amazon.com. You also have BarnesandNoble.com as well. And I believe that when we have the 4th edition, I believe that Barnes & Noble is going to be doing some pretty good promotions and stuff like that on it. So you should be able to see it at the stores. But, if you just want to go ahead and get the books online, then Amazon definitely is the best way to go.
Got it. Awesome. And I will link all of that stuff in the show notes for anyone who wants to check it out. Say hi to Hugo. Any social networks that what's the most active social network that you're on?
Holy cow. I have my Facebook page, which has 1.2 million fans on it. Yeah, it's a blessing. It's like I have fans from all over the world, okay? It's incredible. It's really a blessing. And I get to talk to a whole bunch of different people over there. The Facebook address, if you wanted to type it in, it will be www.facebook.com/HugoRivera.net. And it's going to take you straight to my fan page. Or if you want to go ahead and search me on the search box for Facebook, just go ahead and put Hugo Rivera bestselling author, and it should pop out over there. You should be able to land on my page. The other social media that is really active for me is my YouTube channel. I actually have on my YouTube channel 25,000 subscribers. And I have a ton of really cool videos over there for people to go ahead and check out. They're all free. They have wonderful information. A lot of things are covered, and they have a whole bunch of routines that they can go ahead and try. I have my 7-minute workouts over there too, that for those people that say, I don't have time to train. Well, here you go. You have some 7-minute workouts that you can do with a pair of dumbbells. So the website address for that is youtube.com/HugoRiveraFitness. And it should take you straight to my YouTube channel.
Perfect. All right, Hugo. Well, thanks again for coming on. Thank you, everyone, for listening in, and I will catch you guys on the next episode. Peace out. Hey, guys. Thanks for listening to the podcast. And before you go, I wanted to give you a free meal plan that's going to help you get leaner and burn fat using carb cycling that doesn't suck. This 3-week carb cycling program is something I put together that's really simple, and it lays out all the recipes that you can prepare for the week, systematically dropping your calories and cycling between high carb days and low carb days, therefore helping your body use up some stored energy. So if you want to get that, you can go ahead and go to the abguy.com and drop in your name and email at the home page, and you'll be able to download that for free. All right, so check that out if you want to, and I will see you guys on the next episode of the Ask the Ab Guy podcast. Thanks.